I got you, dude. Just go one point at a time. Give me I know you're going to say there's multiple war crimes. Give me the biggest one.
Just again, the UN has said it's genocide.
No. I don't.
Are we disputing
well, first
UN?
off, the UN has never said it was a genocide. That's incorrect. There was a subcommittee within the UN, which, by the way, was dismantled, and they just put out one last statement before they were already getting dismantled, who said that. It was a group of, I think, 3 to 5 people. I don't remember the exact number. But the UN has never said that, so that's incorrect. But here's the problem with your argument. Even if the UN did say that, that's not proof. I can hear many people say the opposite and that and everything in between. I'm asking you, because you're making the argument. If I want to argue with the UN, I'll go argue with the UN if I can. I'm arguing with you right now. You tell me what's the biggest, so I assume you're going to say genocide, but I'll ask you again. What's the biggest war crime that you can make a solid argument for, and then we'll go back and forth?
Well, there's multiple reports. Again, I've done...
Again, I don't need to hear reports. I am capable. Listen, you can use reports to help your arguments, but you still have to make the arguments, right? If you just tell me, hey, Nick, one second. If you just tell me, hey, Nick, reports exist. Yeah, I know how to read. I don't need you up here to do that. If you want to use a report to expand your argument and explain it from your position, that's okay. I'm not saying don't use sources. But if your only argument is, Nick, reports exist, that's not good enough.
People being shot near aid sites.
Okay, sure. Can you show me one video of... Sure, can you show me one video... wait, when you say near, you're saying at aid sites or near? And what does near mean? Because I agree, they're Hamas, who has been caught throwing grenades into aid sites, attacking the GHF. In fact, 6 GHF members...
Here's what I'll say.
Wait, one second. I didn't even get one sentence in. Holy shit.
Okay. I'll let you continue.
Okay, thanks. Hamas has thrown grenades at these aid sites, or nearby, I should say. 6 GHF members were killed. They said it was by Hamas. I'd love for you to disprove that. So yeah, near aid sites, that's not a war crime. In fact, I'd love for you to point to what international law says that. So when you say near aid sites, are you saying at the aid sites where people just literally getting food? Or are you saying near aid sites? And if you are saying near, can you tell me what near means? Okay, now you can go.
Okay, so again, this is one thing I'll say in addition, because again, always Israel loves to say Hamas, we need to get rid of Hamas. You know, there's
it already feels like you're changing the subject a little bit instead of answering my question, and it feels a little weird. Can you just answer the question since I let you pick the topic?
Like within the radius of like within a mile radius of like 8 sites.
Okay, so
again, if I'm not there, Well,
so first off, that's okay. Honest. I got it.
I'm not there.
Answered.
But a mile.
So dude, I got it. Holy shit, I got it within a mile. Cool, bro. I would even cut that by 4, right? There's what, 5,300 feet. Babe, you gotta mute yourself. 5,300 feet, what, in a mile? So I would cut that even by 4, and that's still an insane assertion. So you're saying it's a war crime if they are having gun firing, whether it be for warning shots, be for crowd control, or if it be fighting Hamas, PIJ, PRC, Army of Islam, PFLP, DFLP. You're saying that's a war crime? Can you point to me what international law that is?
Again, I don't agree with Hamas. Hamas is a cancer. But when we have innocent children, unarmed children passing away, again, you could say, oh, there's Hamas. But let's say your son was taken hostage
wait a minute.
in a school
Dude,
shooting situation.
You're not answering. Wait, hold on. You're not answering my question. You can't just say because people say Hamas, therefore it's not true. You have to either prove that through your assertion. Now, before you embarrass yourself about the whole school shit, because I don't know why everyone makes this argument, it's not even close to comparable. You're activating like social aspects that would require a state police force, SWAT team at most, where an area where they know specifically how many and where, and they circle a specific building, and you're going to say something like, would you blow up the whole school? Yeah, I got it. I've heard it. That's not even comparable to international warfare. In fact, it's such a stupid argument. I don't even know why you guys make it. It's not even close to comparable. Hamas is not trapped in a building where there's 1 or 2 people. I know school shootings can have more, but generally it's 1 or 2 people where they're in and they're shooting kids in a school. That's not what's happening. They've infiltrated and had a spider web across the entire Gaza Strip while they wear civilian clothes. You can't always necessarily identify them. And then they've created an underground city that's almost just as big as what's above ground, where they utilize operation centers out of civilian areas. In fact, they have 0 military bases even on October 6, 2023. Being one of the most densely populated areas in the entire world, I'm sure you'd agree that that means all of their operations out of civilian areas. Trying to compare that to a school shooting is ridiculous. Now, without changing the subject to a ridiculous point like that, can you answer my question?
What was your question exactly?
Okay. My question, right, with about fighting outside of, you said a mile, right, outside of an aid site, even if you cut that by a quarter of it, right? How is that a war crime? And can you explain to me what international law, or Geneva Conventions, Rome Statute, whatever it is you're pulling from to declare this a war crime?
Again, there's just multiple, and there is videos. Obviously, I can't share it here, but videos of literally just kids being like killed. Like again,
At aid sites? At aid sites?
I'm not saying
at aid sites? At aid sites? At aid sites? At aid? At? Oh my God! At aid sites?
I can't confirm for sure if it's at aid sites, but there's videos of IDF over the years. Because again, this conflict has been going on. Again,
wait a minute, hold on. It's so easy to expand out and make...
7th.
Stop. And I'd love to talk about that, but can we try our hardest to stay somewhat focused? Because there's a billion, and I'm sure you can at least agree to this, there's a billion topics we can talk about when it talks about just Israel-Palestine conflict. Just in that, we can swing back and forth. Can we, when I say we, I mean you, because you're the one doing it. Can you stop doing that? Because what you're doing is you don't have an answer for your claim, and so what you're doing is you're trying to shift to something else, and I have to end up playing like defensive ping pong with you. Can we stop doing that and just stick to a topic here? You can expand a little bit, but dude, what the fuck?
I like ping pong.
I understand what you're saying, but it just shows there's so many things.
No, it doesn't show because you haven't proven anything. No, stop. Okay, dude, I got it. You're doing it again. You have like this script that you want to read from, and so when you don't have specific answers, when I try to...
Fuck you and fuck Israel.
Honestly, I was having a better conversation with him than you, but it's this moving the goalpost is what you're doing is you have a script. You can't prove your script. You know you can't, so what you do is you just kind of read the next. Imperialism bad, America bad. Dude, I got it. I've heard it a billion times. I've been debating about this topic for 5 years now. You're not new, okay? But can you stick with one claim? If you want to move on to another claim, you have to at least say you were wrong, or at minimum say, you know what, I don't know enough about this, let's talk about this. But you can't just keep shifting to another claim because you get proven wrong, or not even proven wrong, just asked a question you don't know the answer to.
Again, in regards to that original claim I made, all I know is I had a debate. I have many Jewish friends who I've debated about this, in a most respectful manner, and I have multiple UN reports that say
I don't
again
care.
What's happening is the reports are just UN is just BS.
Not at all. Yes. That's not at all what I'm saying, because I've read those reports. In fact, I've probably read more than you have. I'm going to take a wild guess and say I have. Okay? I didn't say that. I'm pretty sure I already answered this to you, but I'll say it one more time. If your only argument is that Nick reports exist, you're going to lose. Not just this argument, you're going to lose every argument in life if that's your only evidence. If you want to use a report, like if you said, hey, Nick, on July 17th, 2025, the UN released this report that said this, and this is the proof, what do you think about that? Then sure, absolutely. I'm not saying don't use evidence, but you're not doing that. You're just saying, Nick, you're not even saying a specific source. You're just saying, Nick, UN has made reports. Okay, do you want to talk about those?
Because I can't get it up on my phone, because as you know, when you get something up on your phone, if you're connected to
I assume you read them, and of course you're not going to get it verbatim, right? You're not going to get it verbatim, but can you at least somewhat tell me what it said? Because if you can't, then it's stupid to bring up the point because you don't even remember it. Again, I'm not asking you to get it verbatim or you better get me the exact date it was reported. Or no, can you give me something more than just reports exist?
Yeah, hold on. Give me 1 second.
Because there's over 50 different articles that talk about aid site killings, and not one video produced to show any massacre at an aid site. There's some reports that say over 100 people were killed in one instance at aid sites by Merkava tanks. I know that to be wrong because I know what a Merkava tank has, and it'd be impossible for that to be true. But nonetheless, not one video shown. BBC tried to release a video, and it was just bullets firing above their heads. No one died in the video, right? And yeah, I'm sure that sometimes in the midst of fighting, there are going to be innocents that die, but that's not the same thing as saying massacre on massacre. In fact, for like 6 months straight, almost on a daily level, they said there was a new massacre in 8 site. Not one video produced. So yes, you're right, reports do exist, and they're full of shit.
Oh, again, I don't know if you're saying the
Guys,
UN
keep
is.
those likes up. Thank you, guys.
Again, UN right here, October 20th, 2025.
All right,
Gaza
cool. Let's look at it.
genocide, a collective crime.
Wait, hold on, 1 second.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, just I can type somewhat fast, but not fast. So UN, you said October 20th, 2025. Wait, is this Francesca Albanese?
Let me see. Again, right here, and there's multiple others. I could go into.
No, it's fine. I'd be more than glad to. Oh, yes. Okay, so this one was the 1 second. This one was, yes, this was the Commission of Inquiry, right? This wasn't the UN. Yes, they're part of, yes, that was what I was referring to earlier, where I said they released a last statement before they were dismantled anyways. And in it, by the way, they actually quote, because I read this one. Here, let me see. 83. Control F real quick. Anyways, this one actually sourced the whole 83% claim was actually civilians, but it was by an article that was debunked by Yuval Abramson or Abraham or whatever his last name is, and he was only quoting named Hamas and PIJ fighters while ignoring all unnamed fighters. He was ignoring all of the political wing. He was ignoring every other terrorist organization that exists in Gaza, which there's at least 12 major ones outside of Hamas and the PIJ, and he called them all automatically civilians, which is obviously ridiculous. So yeah, this was not the UN, but let me ask you something. I want you to be honest. Did you read this report?
I just started reading it in depth now.
Okay. How about you give me a report that you actually read at some time? Because right now it feels like you're somebody who just typed in Google UN genocide Gaza and
well,
like you're just reading.
Honest, over the years, not over the years, recently, over the months, I've really just, I'm just being honest with you, read headlines, but the headlines stick out when it talks about, again, people being killed by 8 sites. Again, the headline speaks for itself.
Is that good enough for you? No, of course it doesn't. What is it? Let me ask you something. What is a genocide? Like, let's stop with the articles. Let's just have a talk. Yeah, what is a genocide?
Okay, so basically, I would define a genocide as a systemic, right? A systemic kind of killing, removal of a certain group of people. It's like basically very planned out.
Not removal.
Like
that would be yeah, not removal.
Off the face of the earth.
Okay. Oh yeah. If you're talking about removal as in death, then yes. No. Yeah. That's actually it's not right, but that's actually not a bad argument. Definition. I've heard worse. And so what it is the actual definition. I've said it so many times is. The intent to destroy a people in whole or in part based off their protected status. Generally, in this case, we would say nationality, but it also could be, due to race, religion, women versus men, I guess, ethnicity, etc. In this case, we'll say nationality. They're not really a nation, but let's just go with it because the argument is that they're trying to genocide specifically the Gazan people, not like Muslims or not all Palestinians or not all Arabs, but specifically the Gazan people. And in genocide, you need what's called the special intent. It's called dolus specialis. And what dolus specialis means is that means you cannot even make the argument that if someone's doing something for a specific military purpose, for example, that it also has the effect of doing this, so therefore it's genocide. It has to be the special intent that you are doing it solely for genocide. Because genocide falls under just Kogan's norms, which is the highest in hierarchy of international law. In fact, it's so high, just Kogan's norms, which is peremptory norms, it's so high that everyone in the world is bound by it, even if they're not a signatory to the UN, even if they're not a nation, like the Houthis, for example. The Houthis are a terrorist organization that's not the official, Yemen's military. Even they're bound by just Kogan's norms. Okay? So can you explain to me, now that I've kind of given you a little rundown in a 101, can you explain to me how Israel has the dolus specialis, the special intent to do this?
I mean, again, I'm not saying, again, I don't know what's going on in BB's mind or whatever, so I can't say for 100%.
No,
when you tell
you
people
don't need just
who
mind.
Are obviously not in the best situation, you're like, oh, go evacuate. Where are they going to evacuate?
That's not genocide. That's not genocide.
But again, you're telling people we're gonna bomb this area. You got to evacuate. There's nowhere for them to go.
Actually no. Actually, you're wrong. The Al-Mawasi zone has been barely touched the entire war. That's where they evacuate to. So not only are you just like making stuff up, but it's like the opposite of true. It's not even like you're kind of right. It's so untrue. In fact, we saw it during the final, when this last ceasefire, when they released all the living hostages. They literally had cameras in Gaza in areas outside in the outskirts of Khan Yunis and the Al-Mawasi zone that literally no building at all was even touched, right? In the 2 years of war. So you're just, I'm not going to say you're lying. I'm going to say you're ignorant, right? But it doesn't matter because that's not what genocide is. Genocide is not ethnic cleansing. Ethnic cleansing isn't even actually against international law. There's certain aspects within ethnic cleansing that can violate the Rome Statute. That's true. But if you look at the Genocide Convention of 1948, which was ratified in 1951, it specifically states that cultural destruction does not suffice for genocide, nor does simply dispersing a group. Again, you could violate aspects of the Rome Statute, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about genocide. It's a very serious claim, and what you're doing is you're watering down what genocide means, which is kind of fucked up for people who have actually gone through genocide, like the Armenians, the Jews, Rwanda, etc. And so I'm asking you, what special intent? How many people have died in Gaza in the past 2 years of this war? In total?
In total?
Yeah.
I believe 60-something thousand plus.
Yeah, it's closer to 70,000, according to Hamas. But let's use Hamas's numbers, okay? I don't believe them, but that way we can both agree to them. So 70,000. By the way, that doesn't count just civilians. That's all Hamas members. That's all PIJ members. That's all PFLP. That's all DFLP. That's all PRC. That's our Army of Islam. And all the terrorist organizations that exist in Gaza. That's all of their collaborators. And it's all civilians. So, do you know what the population of Gaza is in total?
Copy of the get maybe close to 1 million, not at 1 million, close like 800 something thousand.
2.1 million, dude.
Okay.
In fact, the population has gone up since October 7th, 2023. The only reason that some, if you Google, it'll say it's gone down 6%, is because it counts about 200,000 people who have left the Gaza Strip. But we're not going to count that in genocide because those are people that left. But if you look at birth rate versus those who have died, even, by the way, even if you include Hamas and terrorists being killed, like everyone, the population has actually gone up. But anyways, 2.1 million. If you look at just the civilian population that has been killed, again, assuming Hamas is telling the truth, even though they have counted 0, and this is something you can look up, they've counted 0 natural deaths since October 7th, 2023, which is weird because natural deaths still happen in war. And it's funny how there's been 0 since October 7, 2023. Even if you look at the bare minimum of natural deaths on average in Gaza prior to the October 7th war, there was about 500 per month. After 24 months, right, that's what, 12,000 people? That means there's potentially 12,000 or more that's on the death toll that had nothing to do with the war. Literally just natural deaths, and they are including that. So, but let's pretend that's not even true. Let's just throw that to the side, just to really throw you a bone here. Even if we go with Hamas's numbers and we assume the civilian death part is actually accurate, that's less than 2% of the entire population of Gaza. Can you explain to me how they have the special intent to commit genocide, but the population's gone up? There's been more births in the first year alone than total deaths in the entire 2 years of war, and it's less than 2% of the population.
Whether there's special intent or not, what's happening is
that's required, just so you know. That's required. You can't say whether or not. It's required to be classified as genocide.
Again, you can't say for certain there's special intent because of the parameters you just mentioned, but it's not.
I can say for certain. No, I can say for certain that you're wrong.
IDF funding. Look at the IDF funding. I can say for certain you're wrong. I can say for certain it's definitely not genocide. That's the point I'm making. You can say it's wrong. I don't agree, but you can say it's wrong. But that's not the same thing as genocide. This is what I meant earlier, 5 minutes ago, when I said you're watering down what genocide actually is. I said what the UN has said, and I know you said it was a subcommittee. It wasn't the actual UN. But even if
it was the UN, does that?
What I said.
I don't see why that matters. But like, I don't give a shit.
UN the most trusted source? And again, I was debating someone with this a while ago. They were saying, "Show me."
Did you just say the UN is the most? Did you just say that the UN is the most trusted source? By what metric does anyone actually believe that? In what metric does anyone believe the UN is the most trusted source?
Is the UN not a collective? Is the UN not a collective?
That's why it's not. Hold on, dude. That's why it's not a trusted source. In fact, because think about it, it's a collective of people with vastly different, wild ideologies. And so when you have these subcommittees, which are made up of, let's say, someone from Pakistan and Saudi, like, for example, Prosecutor Khan, who was the one that released the arrest warrants for Bibi Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant. He is a Pakistani Muslim who has been an outspoken anti-Zionist for like over a decade at least. And so when you have these people, when you read the article, it just says UN committee. But then when you look at the individuals, like you perfectly said, it's a collected source, right? Because it's a collection of many people. You find out there are people that don't even recognize the state of Israel, but somehow they'll have a vote on Israel, which is a little hypocritical.
Do you believe in climate change, Bradley?
I believe, to a certain extent, I
Do you
believe
believe
it's
that the
overexaggerated.
world is going to come to an end because of cow farts and what kind of car we drive?
I believe it's been overexaggerated for sure.
Who's been doing the over-exaggerating of it?
Multiple.
The IPCC, which is part of the UN. You know, the UN also doesn't believe in the Second Amendment, right? They think that the United States should abolish the Second Amendment and that the UN should come in and take away all our guns. Do you trust that?
Me personally, I do believe in the Second Amendment. I believe in the right to.
Do you
defend
find
myself from
a
government.
body that thinks that our Second Amendment should be repealed and that they should come in and take our guns? Do you find that to be a trustworthy source?
I find it to be a more trustworthy source than, I'm not saying it's the most accurate source, but I find it to be a more trustworthy source than, let's say, stand on the internet.
Come here.
Well, I
Like,
didn't
for
say
example,
that's not what
come
we're
here real
comparing it
quick.
to. We're not comparing it to stand on the internet. You're saying the most trustworthy source. The UN that puts Iran as the head of the Human Rights Council.
So what's more trustworthy? The people who are actually, obviously Israel's not going to say, "Oh yeah, we're terrible, we're doing these terrible things." Just like Nazi Germany, who brought the Nuremberg trials, it wasn't Germany. So again, obviously, who are you going to trust in something like
some
this?
of the Nazis came and admitted what they did, and they were proud of it.
Why does this matter? Because the UN didn't say it anyways. This is a nothing burger. It doesn't matter because the UN didn't say this anyways. But the reason I was arguing that it's not because the UN did or didn't say it. It's because even if my own dad, brother, best friend, whatever, came to me and said something that was severely incorrect, I'm not just gonna believe them because I trust them. That's ridiculous. I don't care if it's the UN. If the UN came out tomorrow and said something that was very pro-Israel, I might agree on an individual level, but I'm not going to be like, they're trustworthy now because they agree with me. It's not about agreeing or not, or sorry, about trustworthy or not. It's that they're just not, period, even if they agree with me.
2/3 of the UN membership are authoritarian dictatorships,
right?
That are not Western in values.
Dude, the UN put Iran for a whole year in charge of women's rights. I don't remember the name of the committee, but it was about women's rights. Iran, who, by the way, the year before they did that, kidnapped a Kurdish woman because she was wearing a hijab and she had a few hairs sticking out of the hijab, and they kidnapped her and then beat her to death. And then when there was protests, they would slaughter, a lot of them were women because they were taking their hijabs off in protest, slaughter them in the streets. The next year after that, the UN puts them in charge of women's rights. And you're here like, well, the UN, they're the most trusted. Dude, what are you talking about?
Well, I
They're
can't,
literally. I think I trust the UN less than I trust most anybody.
Nobody should trust governments. And if there's a global government...
agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
you agree, but you're here hyping up a global government?
Again, what that guy was saying also before, again, you're going to say I'm going off the topic, but he's not wrong about the healthcare and the education. Okay, obviously that's not the only thing that's funding. Okay, like you said.
Wait, what are you talking about? Of course he's wrong.
Helping.
Of course he's
helping
wrong.
out.
Of course
The money
he's
we send to
wrong.
Israel helps them-
It doesn't.
helps
No,
them
it doesn't,
have the ability.
dude. Let me. Okay,
does
first.
help them have the ability.
No, it doesn't, and I'll tell you why. Okay, do you know how much money we send to Israel per year?
Like $4 billion, and I think it's like
Yeah, yeah. It's not. No, in fact, you're actually too high a
I mean,
little bit.
just
It was
for-
3. No, It's 3.8
When you
billion.
adjust for inflation,
Can you just
no, when
stop
you adjust for
talking? No,
inflation,
it's
since
you're
Israel's-
you're still wrong.
No, this is true.
You're still wrong. If you just shut up, I will tell you why you're wrong. Just
not
let
the
me.
one saying
Just
this.
why don't you just give it a shot? Maybe I know what I'm talking about. Just let me say in a couple sentences here.
Let's see what you
All
have
right.
to say.
So of the 3.8 billion, even adjusted for inflation, the reason you're wrong is because inflation adjusts on both ends, so it's actually a neutral effect. You don't understand macroeconomics, but that's not the point. Do you know how much of that is direct funding?
Direct funding?
Yeah.
Like Israel?
Yeah.
I can't give exact numbers, but
It's 500
again-
million. It's 500 million, and all of that is required to go into missile defense, which they require to. A lot of the missiles are actually built through contracts with Raytheon. I think there's another American company, maybe Lockheed Martin. I don't remember exactly the other one. I think it's Lockheed Martin. And so that
But like
creates
you just said, you
jobs.
can't trust
Stop.
governments.
Stop.
okay.
It's
continue.
not about trusting governments or not, dude. You're just making this up as you go. It's about you're wrong to say that this actually helps in their healthcare. So 500 million is direct funding that goes straight into missile defense, which, by the way, is by far the biggest in missile defense in the world. And it's not because it's because of who their neighbors are and who is always attacking them. And so it's in our interest by far, especially with the Cold War, which never really ended, with Russia and China not having influence in the most hot spot to have influence in, maybe tied with the Pacific Theater, right? We have an interest that is beneficial to us far more than $3.8 billion a year, times 100 even, okay? And the intelligence we get from them, the company contracts that we get from them, this has raised our GDP tens of billions of dollars. The bird system since 1977 that we have with Israel has raised our GDP tens of billions of dollars, created an innovation. Okay, but the other 3.3 billion of the 3.8 billion, okay, is mostly a credit system, which is required to spend back into our own system. We even force Israel to buy things that they actually have the ability to make themselves, and we force them not to make it in certain types of ammunition and force them to buy from us, which stimulates our economy, our growth, and it resupplies our arms because a lot of this stuff is actually expiring because we luckily are not going into wars anymore. Hopefully, knock on wood. And so what we do is we give them some of the stuff that we're not using, and it allows us to resupply these areas with fresh, sometimes new equipment, sometimes the equipment we get from Israel. Israel, a few years ago, gave the United States Marine Corps a chip that they created for free that upgraded their missile defense systems. You don't think we get this money back? You think America's doing this out of the kindness of our hearts? No, of course not. And by the way, I agree with that. America shouldn't help anyone unless we get something out of it.
No, I believe, again, Israel does serve a purpose, right, for imperialism, for American Israeli imperialism. But does that really benefit the average U.S. citizen? Again,
Yes.
that doesn't benefit. Oh, so yes. So that.
Of course.
Yes.
Of course it does. Our GDP rising, stock prices going up, our economy increasing. This naturally has a downward effect. Now, go ahead.
Why has unanimously pretty much, you ask the average American, hey, has your quality of life went up or down over the years? Since
Is this
Israel's
really an
creation?
argument?
Again,
Is
I'm
this-
not saying it's.
Are
Is
you
this really-
Israel's fault.
blaming the quality
Wait,
of life?
hold on.
Americans
No,
Wait,
I'm not blaming
have
it
on
solely, but
Israel?
you're saying how it just.
Wait a
how
minute.
This,
Wait a minute.
This is
Wait a
benefiting
minute.
us in so many
Wait
ways.
a minute.
It's
Wait a
increasing our
minute.
GDP
Wait a
so
minute.
much.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. First off, 2 points. One, if your argument for, by the way, not just Israel, any topic is if you ask the average American, there's a reason we are a republic, dude, because the average American's an idiot. So the point that you're making, yeah, I agree with you. If you ask the average American about not just Israel, a lot of things, they're gonna fucking get it wrong. Like, what kind of argument is that? That's why we're a republic and not a true democracy, which is garbage system. Like, no shit, dude. We have an electoral college for a reason in our presidential votes. Do you think that's because the average American is so smart? No, it's because they're so dumb. No shit. But the second point is your whole argument was he was right about their universities and healthcare. You're deflecting about with quality of life.
But we did, when you take it from the government, right? When you take their word for it, right? We haven't been spending any money as far as economy goes or whatever recently. Okay. But prior to like 2000, I think there was billions of dollars put into Israel's economy.
Definitely not. Definitely not. We
Yes.
didn't start doing the 3.8 billion until Obama second term. So that was, I think he signed it in I want to say it was 2015, give or take, maybe 2014. So definitely not 2000s. But
I
nonetheless,
literally have a report. I could confirm this. I've done research on this topic.
oh, well, yeah, if you add it all over, I mean, since 1988 really was when we started continuously funding them. You know, I mean, if you go back to JFK was like the first president to actually do major arms deal and give to Israel. But, you know, continuously late 1980s. No, you're right about that. But again, this isn't the argument you're making. So it's not even close. Your argument was that he was right about the universities and the healthcare. First off,
but you don't think all the money over the years? Okay,
no. I'm going to tell you why. Of course of course, but that's not the point. The point is that when you say, well, our quality of life has changed and we could spend this money back into America. First off, it's a drop in the bucket. Like our last budget was like almost $7 trillion, 3.8 billion, which again, that's not even direct funding. Only 500 million is, but fuck it. Let's just pretend it was, just to throw you a bone here. That would not fund anything. Okay? It wouldn't. In fact, we lose about 12 to 13 times that amount every year to we don't actually fucking know. Literally, we have created a separate budget to money we just lose. And it's about $50 billion, give or take. And 3.8 billion, dude, it would fund nothing. But that being said, when you talk about quality of life, yes, we could cut a lot of programs that we find beneficial to America, national security, and put that into, it could be healthcare, it could be university. We could cut our military budget. Would we still be a world police? Would we still have the influence we do? No. And if you find that to not be an important value, one, you're an idiot. But two, that's fine. But to say, oh, if we cut this, we could help Americans. Well, yeah, that's true for everything. But I find certain values to be more important. I'm very much against universal healthcare, even if we had the money. I think it's garbage.
So then why does Israel have it, for example? Even though
I think it's great for a country of 10 million. I think universal healthcare works well. In fact, if you get smaller and smaller, communism becomes more appealing and more correct. Like post-apocalyptic type societies where you have little cities, I think communism works well. Kibbutzim in Israel, communism works amazingly. But we're talking about a country where... I'm sorry, what?
I don't agree with... Again... Healthcare, just because you have universal healthcare.
I'm not saying you agree with communism. I didn't say that at all. You're just deflecting. I'm not saying, yeah, you're just wrong, but it doesn't matter. I didn't say you agreed with communism. I was simply telling you that when you're trying to compare a socialist aspect in Israel or like Sweden or whatever and try to compare that to America, because you asked me, well, why do you think Israel has it? First off, I think Israel's healthcare is not that great. I know this personally because my wife, who was supposed to come to me after a couple months while she was in Israel, it took over a year, because I think it's great when you have like a common cold or fever, you get something, it's free, here you go, boom. But when it came to like a specialist, it took her over a year to actually see somebody. Whereas in America, yes, I pay for my insurance. I pay for the top of the line insurance. But if I wanted somebody by this weekend, I could get it. And I'd be done probably by next week. And so that's a trade-off. And so when you say, why does Israel have it? First off, I'm not here advocating for what Israel has or doesn't have. But even if I was trying to compare a country of 10 million people and trying to compare that to a country of 330 million plus people is ridiculous.